I'm going to this fine gentleman right here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm your colleague, Shelley. I'm not an accountant.
We'll deal with these issues
Well, then
in
stop,
another form.
then stop being sorry through.
Okay, I understand. Let me go back. Let me go back for a second. Okay.
Then stop being
Okay.
I'm not
Excuse me.
through.
Let me read. Excuse me. Let me read rule number 5.
Good idea.
Decorum will be maintained during board meetings. Side and cross conversations will be avoided. And requests to speak will be addressed to the president. The president will be responsible for ensuring that all sides on an issue are given adequate consideration, but will limit argument on procedural questions, protracted discussions, and irrelevant or lengthy expositions. Okay, let's talk about.
Excuse me, before you go.
Any other comments from the board?
I do.
First of all, I appreciate you offering to do that. Yes, sir.
I have one.
Mike.
Um,
No.
Wanda, and just, I'm not making a defense of anybody here by any means, but my question is, on the night of us electing officers, did you not nominate Francine
Yeah, I did.
with the knowledge of Jose being on the finance committee and being an accountant?
I'm guilty. And
Can I-
that's true. I am. I swear, because you know what? I felt very confused.
Okay.
Things were happening so fast. I was trying to
I
process.
understand that.
And
The
it was
reason
a
why I
lot
asked
of
is because-
process.
Mr. President, can I make a comment?
We're all
There-
here.
there's no- right now, there is zero reason to have any side discussion whatsoever. There's zero reason because no matter what happens in the next 2 weeks to a month, if KS and other people are not going to be in a position to be dealt with, she's going to stay, but right now, nothing's going to change. So right now, there's no reason to have any side discussion.
Correct.
When is it?
Sir, you have a comment.
Are you collecting any names for the volunteers on that committee?
Absolutely. Would you like to volunteer?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to be on the finance committee.
Okay. Do we know your name?
Curious.
We do.
My initials are KS. Curious Shah.
Any other folks?
You couldn't write this.
volunteer?
We're writing a book about this.
The best part about the finance committee is that, we're healthy.
I'll volunteer.
Thankfully. Dawn, thank you.
There you go.
I mean, we are healthy. We are financially healthy.
As long as Jose's on, I'll Jose, if you're not on the committee, I'm not on, so,
Thank you.
but I'll help for the month.
We have
Those are my
we have
brothers.
a very knowledgeable CPA over here who helps. Sir, what is your name? So I know. Richard, what's your last name? Goddess?
Do you go by Richard, Mr. Goss? Or do you go by Bob?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I have a
yes.
question. So, in the meantime, when I'm going to be interim, I don't have to deal with KS, right?
What?
I'm still going to be the treasurer.
He asked if we still have to.
Currently, he is still the treasurer, okay? And that's going to be the case until we have a meeting with an agenda where it'll all be discussed and everybody will air their issues. And that meeting will happen soon, okay?
Can I just
Because
make-
that's what the homeowners have asked me to do, okay? So that's not on the agenda for tonight. So hopefully that answers your question.
But can I just make a quick comment? Generally,
Is it
how,
related?
yeah,
Please.
just to maybe ease his mind. When the financials go out, the financials will go to the finance committee
Correct.
to review. So you don't necessarily have to initially deal with KS. You would go through, do your meeting, and then it would be presented to the board in the form of a report at that time. So I think that you can probably avoid that confrontational thing.
We're running out of time, so let me move quickly. The next committee is the maintenance committee. Is there a member of the board of directors that would be willing to serve as the chairman or co-chairman of the maintenance committee, which is responsible for the building that we're in, among other things? Did you get volunteer?
No, we got.
Fire cut.
Didn't we talk about
Yeah. Maintenance, landscape, there's
We-
maintenance, landscape, and security.
well, I
Maintenance,
can,
landscape, and security.
I
Let's
can tell
talk
you
about
now, I have no issue with with the landscape at all. I'd be more than happy to jump on the security committee as well.
Okay, so you'd like to, is there anybody else that would like to co-chair the landscape committee with Mike? Or do you want to chair?
No, I can,
Wait a minute, you guys are confusing the hell out of me.
Okay. So Jacques is going to co-chair the landscape committee with Mike.
Can I make a comment? We generally, I mean, it's your choice, but usually we try to only have one board member, and that way you're not really
Yeah.
having board
I
member
don't want
opinion
people speculating.
recommending to the board.
Mike, I'm gonna appoint you as the chair of the landscape committee. There's a maintenance committee and a security committee. A maintenance committee and a security committee.
If I can,
I want us to do landscape. You got nothing? Did you? Yes.
There you go.
Didn't say that up there.
I've got a background. I was a horticulture major. I worked on a golf course for over 8 years. I'm not doing a resume thing.
Keep that golf course with security or maintenance. Anybody, maintenance, Jacques will head up to, will chair the maintenance.
Jobs at GC, correct?
Doctor J. Maintenance.
Yes. Security is the last one.
Security, the Eric Maintenance. Bob.
Eric, would you be interested in chairing the security committee?
Sure.
I appreciate that.
I'll volunteer to co-chair.
For the security committee? Great. Thank you, William.
Be involved in security as well.
Yeah.
Great, that'd be great. Thank you,
I'll also be
Matt.
involved in maintenance too.
Great, thank you, Matt.
You
knew
can put
it.
me on security, I've been begging for years.
What was your name?
Suzanne Cruz,
Suzanne Cruz,
or Jane Smith, whatever you'd like to call
security.
me.
Okay, somebody else.
I've been asking for a while. I did send her an email. I was doing it through the proper channels, but I'm on the landscape. I want to be,
Landscape committee.
That's what started this whole thing years ago with me with
Conferring on landscape.
landscape.
Okay, who else? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was on the landscape and art committee before, so am I supposed to volunteer again?
I would love to
Or
have you
was I supposed
volunteer
to-
again for both of them.
I thought I was still on them, but
Yeah, the art, you don't need to worry about it. You continue on the art if you want to.
the landscape, yes.
That would be great.
And see, that's what I was thinking, we were supposed to have a landscaping, committee meeting on Monday, but in the email it said it would be after this meeting.
Correct.
I wrongly assumed it was following, like, afterwards. So I didn't realize that committee was absolved, so yes, I would like to be on the
Great.
landscaping committee. I
You're
didn't realize
there.
I was.
What's going to happen is we wanted to have this meeting so we could have the board members that are going to chair the committees enacted and implement immediately the schedules that were occurring. So Mike in the landscape committee can carry through on that meeting in the discussion about cul-de-sacs and the other items.
I'd like to stay on the landscape committee as well.
Yes,
Of course,
And
yes.
just side note on that, I'm not sure you're aware, because I haven't brought up. If it is the same as before, I believe there's a cap of 9 people on the committee.
I'd love to reach the cap and say to the 10th person, you're on the wait list. Let's get there
Right?
first.
Because I know it was.
Well, the
8,
committee,
but
the
then
committee,
they
the
expanded it to 9 along
committee
the
chair
board.
can make that determination. The only
That's
thing
correct.
is, yeah,
Let's see what
but
kind
I'll
of
get with you
participation we
after.
got. We don't want to be too big because then we'll never get anything done.
Yeah.
But we want to have people that are involved. Yes,
It's
Brian.
going to take years to get crap done no more.
Great. And security, okay, excellent. Thank you. So as we're going through this, I
Dan,
would,
sorry, I don't think you got my name though. Vanessa
Vanessa, what was your last name?
Sigliano.
Sigliano. Okay.
Mike, I'll give you the
You're
list.
Stephanie, correct?
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me do this, so we can maintain some order here. If you have an interest in any committee, we're gonna go through really quickly and announce the committee chairs again, and then you can talk with that person.
Can I
and then
ask you just real
deal with
quick?
the last
Did
issue
you,
on
did anybody email the current committee members and ask them if they still wanted to stay on the
the.
committee?
We're gonna do that too,
Okay,
that's,
because landscape had 9 already.
let's deal with what's in the room right now,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna state some things that I think are really important for the committees. Okay, let's start down at the end of the table with Eric. Eric, you're gonna head up the security committee. So if you have an interest in getting involved in the security committee, please see Eric. Bob, are you chairing the committee?
No, he's our secretary.
Okay, you're the secretary. Okay, Francine, you're chairing the social committee?
Yes.
So if you have any interest in the social committee, please,
Yeah, we got that.
please reach out.
We have an officer chairing. I think one is the only officer that's chairing.
Okay. KS? Okay. KS is chairing communication. If you have an interest in the communication committee, see KS and Anita as well. Anita will be the co-chair of that as well. Mike is chairing landscape. If you have an interest in serving on the landscape committee, please see Mike. Mike has a list of all the current members, and we'll get a list of that. And it'll be his job to either expand or contract or deal with all the people that want to be on the landscaping committee. I wish we had as much involvement in other committees as we have as a landscape committee. Mr. Cabrera is going to co-chair the finance committee with the able help of our ex-president, Don, and Mr. Gadas. Thank you, Richard. Jacques is going to head the maintenance committee. If you have an interest in helping the maintenance committee is doing things like maintenance of the clubhouse. You know, there's all kinds of things that are gonna come up that are gonna be maintenance issues.
Is that including the roads and the
It's
piers?
roadways, a lot of the major issues.
Take a look at the
in
engineering,
reserve report.
the reserve report will
Correct.
will show everything.
It's gonna be a very, very important committee, and I would ask people to consider getting involved in that. And then Wanda? You and I are gonna co-chair the delinquency committee and nobody can get involved.
Well,
Sorry
you
about
know, I
that.
also, monitor the HOA rentals, okay, make sure that they have leases, and make sure the property is not in,
And that's part of the delinquency committee, and I'll help you with that.
Well,
Anyway.
it's separate, actually, if you know, I mean, you got the HOA rules, and you have the delinquency.
I'd love to help with that.
You know, like, we just keep up with the mulch, the roof,
Yep.
repairs.
Yep.
stuff like that.
Okay, great.
1, 3, 4.
Let's start with the finance committee for right now, and then we're gonna, because we have to deal with these issues that are in front of us in terms of your role, getting people to air issues. I want to make sure that everybody understands that these are the committees that are being formed now. We'll always have a chance, there are other committees that may need to be formed, like the treasurer's committee. One of the things that AS mentioned to me was that she would like to have a treasurer's committee that's going to help her with checks and balances. So that's important for you all to know, because I know a lot of people are concerned about how somebody's going to write checks and have any check and balance. We're all about checks and balances and control. So she has raised that to me, but I think for right now, I would table that just for right now until we get through the issues with the treasurer and with Jock and all these board of directors issues. Let's deal with that at the next meeting. Real quickly, because we gotta go. The committees are gonna be charged with two key things right now. And this is what I'd like each of the committee chairs to do and co-chairs. One is I want development and update of a mission statement for each committee. I want each committee to tell us exactly what they're gonna do so we can make sure we don't have any gaps. We can make sure there's minimal overlap. Committees aren't doing the same thing. It's not appropriate to waste your time or their time doing the same things. The second thing is I'm gonna ask each committee chair to develop a top 10 list of the projects that they wanna work on this year. And that's really important so we can have some accountability. Those are the two key things that I want the committees to do at this point. There will be more, but I'll let the committee chairs decide. That's their role. Real-time web access, brief update. I've spoken with Anita, and this will be the role of the communications committee coming up, that the real-time web access is going to happen. We are going to try to make it happen for the January meeting. It's going to be a tall task because of the holidays, but our goal is to get an appropriate vendor that has as much of a foolproof methodology as possible so that we can go to our website, log in, link to a link that goes, and you can watch the meeting if you can't make it. It's really important. We have a lot of displaced owners. We have a lot of people traveling. We have people with families. Just like I talked about in the annual meeting at Meet the Candidates Night, that's a big deal for me, is getting people involved. We're going to start with probably a 50-person capacity or a small number of capacity, gauge the interest, we'll market it, we'll advertise it, we'll let you know what's out there. If the interest is overwhelming, we'll blow the roof off of it and we'll provide capacity so everybody can watch via the web and also to have live comments and chat so that you can participate in these meetings. We had a lengthy meeting. I appreciate everybody coming here tonight. I'm sorry I talked so much. That's not going to happen in future meetings, but I thought it would be very important to have this meeting and for me to establish some ground rules so that I know that the owners know that we're going to try to do the very best we can in running this organization. So with that, I'll ask if there are any more comments from the board on what's been covered. Yes.
Am I allowed to meet with public property?
You can meet with vendors. There's going to be no promising of anything, but I can meet with vendors and then report back to the board as to the results of that meeting. Yes. Yes. Any comments from the audience with respect to what we've talked about tonight? Understanding that we are going to have a separate meeting dealing with the treasurer issue and Mr. Jacques' issue. So if you can give me the level of respect to deal with any comments that deal with what we talked about tonight, I'll look for a show of hands. Yes, sir.
Dan, I think you did a great job of holding this meeting. I look forward to you being president. And I'm glad you covered the code of conduct. I just want to know, how do you plan on holding each member accountable to that code of conduct?
It's a very good question. I I think the first thing that's gonna happen is that there's gonna be an oral reprimand if there's any type of violation. If it's not heeded, I think it has to go to the council, and then there's gonna have to be a certified letter put on the board member. And we'll also look at the documents at that time. If it's significant enough, if it's a material enough violation of the code of conduct that everybody signed, then we'll take whatever action is allowable under the bylaws. And we will be swift with that because information travels very quickly in this information age. So that's my preliminary answer. It would be dependent upon legal counsel, but that's what I think would be my proposed method of dealing with it. Yes, ma'am.
Since a good portion of the people here came for the reason you don't want to discuss, and that's going to be at another meeting, can you give us an idea of when that meeting is going to be?
Yes, ma'am. I can tell you right now that I need to have a discussion with the management company about timing and capacity to make sure we have enough room for everybody. And then I need to look at my own schedule and make sure I'm not interrupting my family's holiday schedule. Other than that, it's going to be soon. That's about as clear as I can give you right now without having spoken with my wife.
Good man.
Yes, sir.
About the real-time web access for meeting, don't you think that will discourage members or those homeowners to come to the meeting? If they can sit in their home while other people can at least have 1 hour in a month to spare, come to the meeting, look for the transparency if they are interested, instead of just, be anywhere and a web access.
I'd like to respond, and then some of the other board members may.
If they choose to do that, they won't be able to comment and have the face-to-face interaction, so they will be missing that.
In supplement to what Mr. Cabrera just said, there is going to be an ability to have some online, we're going to try to make it so people can ask questions online. But respectfully, I think that from my standpoint, that I've made the decision when I ramp, that I think it's the benefits of doing that, and getting participation, and having people understand what this board is trying to do, outweigh the costs or potential costs of people not attending in person. I think that it's, my assumption is that we're going to have a lot of people online, but we'll still have some dedicated people in person because they want to be heard in person. And we appreciate that, and we encourage people to be in person. The problem is we only have limited facilities. And I don't want to discourage people by saying, well, there's not enough room. I spent the last meeting standing. I don't want to stand again. I got there, or if I'm getting there late, log on. Yes, ma'am.
Have you found out any preliminary cost on how much the cost will be per month, or is it per access,
Yeah.
or is it going to be open access?
It's a great question. We're looking at it. There are two ways to do it. One, you can get a vendor that provides everything. That's usually the most expensive, and they charge a la carte. The other way to do it is you can buy the equipment. I've heard estimates of $400 for the equipment, but then the question is how do we implement that, and whose broadband and whose access are we using, versus we want to try to make this a professional presentation. We want to make sure that there's panoramic. We also want to make sure that it's as foolproof as it can be, because online access is not always very stable. So we're looking at it. We're trying to look at it as quickly as we can. But, I think that as long as the cost is reasonable in this board's opinion, that it's worth doing if the initial beta test shows that there's a substantial interest in it.
I agree. I was just curious with
We're
the
not going to
cost.
sign a contract doing anything until we have been able to test it. And that's going to be part, I think, of this board's approach with a vendor, is we need to have some test runs before we sign any.
Have you thought about doing like a special project committee specifically for that, where you may have homeowners that have that knowledge or background, maybe work for Verizon or some broadband company, and have IT background that can facilitate and get the information to you, opposed to just having the communications committee look at it. Maybe they're working on other things. You could have like a special project committee that might have more experience or background in that.
It's a great idea, and to the extent that the designation of a special projects committee it gets people more excited and wants to participate because they don't have to participate in the long run.
Well, we've had luck, and the reason why I asked is we've had a lot of luck with that, incorporating that, because with large projects that we've done, such as mailbox, etc., we have more people that would want to get involved in that than commit on a monthly basis.
Correct. So it's a great point.